Welcome and good morning to all B.Sc. third year students of Fishery Science. Boys, during last part we have seen fish feed ingredients. In this fish feed ingredient, various types of ingredient these are to be occur. In these various ingredient, the ingredient which is to produce or the product which is to be formed from the milling or the processing industries, that product it is to be called as mill by-product. And in this mill by-product we are studying wheat germ mill, wheat red dog, wheat middlings and wheat mill. These different wheat product which is to be have seen. These various mill by-product we have seen today again in part 2. Feed mill run. Next, mill by-product from wheat industry, and that mill by-product is the wheat mill run. Wheat mill run consists of wheat germ, fine particles of wheat bran, wheat shots, wheat germ, wheat flour and offal from the tail of the mill. All that material, when these are to be combined and forms a product, that product is called as a wheat mill run. What is in the wheat mill run? Wheat mill run consists of wheat germ, fine particles of wheat bran, wheat shot, wheat germ, wheat flour and offal from the tail of the industry, tail of the mill processing industry. That material it is to be called as a wheat mill run. Ground run of the mill screening are normally added. Ground run of the mill screening are normally added. Wheat mill run is available in the west. Wheat mill run is separated. Wheat mill run is available in the west. Wheat mill run is separated into bran, middlings and red dog. Wheat mill run is to be separated into three parts as bran, as middlings and red dog. Wheat mill run may be have a crude protein level of 14 to 17%, a crude fat level is 3 to 4% and a crude fiber level is 8.5 to 9.5%. That ingredient it is to be called as a wheat mill run. This ingredient these are to be formed or produced from the industry, from the processing feed processing industry or the feed processing mill, and that product is the wheat mill run. This wheat mill run is to be chiefly the fine particles of germ, then particles of wheat bran, then particles of wheat short, wheat germ, wheat flour and waste material from the industry or from the feed processing mill. And this wheat mill run, these are to be contained in 1 molecule or 1 gram of wheat mill run. Crude protein level is 14 to 17%, crude fat level is 3 to 4% and crude fiber level is 8.5 to 9.5%. Such ingredient is to be important, useful for the feed of fish. Next, mill by-product categorized into second, that is corn mill by-product. The product which is to produce from the corn industry, the product which is to be produced from the corn mill processing, and that product is to be called as the corn mill by-product from the industry or the offal part of the corn industry or the corn food processing industry. The waste which is to be produced, ingredient which is to be produced, that ingredient is called as the corn mill by-product. In this corn mill by-product, the first corn mill by-product is the corn gluten mill. corn gluten meal. Corn gluten meal is the dried residue from corn after the larger part of the starch and germ have been removed, and the bran separated by the process employed in the wheat milling manufacture of corn starch or syrup of the enzymatic treatment of endosperm. Corn gluten meal is the dried residue from the corn after the larger part of the starch and germ have been removed, and the bran separated after starch and germ is to be removed from the corn industry. The bran separated by the process employed in the wheat milling manufacture of corn starch or syrup by the enzymatic treatment of the endosperm. The corn gluten meal may contain fermented corn extractives. Corn gluten meal may contain fermented corn extractives or corn germ meal. The crude protein level may be 41 to 43%. Crude fat level is to be 1 to 3%, and crude fiber level is 4 to 6%. And in this corn gluten meal, extra material which is to present, extra content which is to present, that content is the xanthophyll, and this xanthophyll is to be 140 to 220 mg per kg xanthophyll which is to be present or occur. Means this corn gluten meal is contain number of other ingredient, number of other materials or number of other components such as protein, fats and fiber. Instead of protein, fat, fiber, xanthophyll is also present in the corn gluten meal, and this xanthophyll is to be 140 to 220 mg per kg xanthophyll. These are to produce. This is the important ingredient for fish or the fish culture industry. Next, corn meal byproduct is the corn gluten feed. Next, corn meal byproduct is the corn gluten feed. Corn gluten feed is that of the commercial sold corn. Corn gluten feed is that of the commercial sold corn that remains after the extraction of the larger portion of the starch. Sold corn that remains after the extraction of the larger portion of the starch. Gluten and germ, starch, gluten and germ by the process employed in the wheat milling manufacture of corn starch or syrup. Corn starch or syrup. Corn gluten feed will contain a crude protein level is 21 to 22%. Crude fat level is 1 to 2.5%, and crude fiber level is 8 to 10%. This ingredient is also formed from the corn meal byproduct. Corn gluten feed. Corn gluten feed is that of the commercial sold corn that remains after the extraction of the larger portion of the starch, gluten and germ by the process employed in the wheat milling manufacture of corn starch or syrup. Corn gluten feed will contain a crude protein level is 21 to 22%, crude fat level is 1 to 2.5%, and crude fiber level is 8 to 10%. Next, feed ingredient is the rice groats. Rice groats. Name itself indicates that rice groats. Rice groats are the ground rice kernel. Rice groats are the ground rice kernel without the bran. Without the bran is called as the rice groats. Rice groats are the ground rice kernel without bran. It is called as rice groats, and rice groats contain approximately a crude protein level of 8.6%. Crude protein level is 8.6%. Crude fat level is 1.2%, and crude fiber level is to be 1%. Means rice groats contain approximately the protein, fat and fiber which is to be minimum concentration, which is to be minimum level, that is the rice groats. Then rice bran with germ. Rice bran with germ. Rice bran with germ is primarily the pericarp. Rice bran with germ, primarily it is the pericarp or bran larger and the germ portions, bran layer and the germ portions of the rice kernel. This rice bran with germ, which contain crude protein 13.3%, crude fat 15% and crude fiber level is 11%. Rice bran with germ, only with this rice bran, that is germs, these are to present. Primary germ is nothing but the pericarp and it is to be a bran layer and the germ portions of the rice kernel. That bran layer or the germ portions of the rice kernel layer is called as the rice bran with germ, which contain 13.3% crude protein, 15% fat and 11% fibers. Next, meal byproduct is the rice polishing. Rice polishings. Rice polishings are the outer portions of the rice kernel produced by the process used in producing polished white rice. What is meant by rice polishing? Rice polishing are the outer portions of the rice kernel produced by the process used in producing polished white rice. Rice polishing have a crude protein level is 11.8%, crude fat level is 13.2% and fiber level is 3%. Means rice polishing are the outer portions of the rice kernel produced by the process used in producing polished white rice. When in mill industry or the feed industry, white rice or the rice is to be polished, producing a white rice. At that time, this rice polishing, these are to produce, these are to form, and it contains protein 11.8%, fat 13.2% and fiber 3%. Next, meal byproduct is the oat groats. Oat groats are the cleaned oats with their hulls removed. Oat groats are the cleaned oats with their hulls removed. Oat growth will contain a protein level of 16%, fat level 6% and fiber level 2%. Means oat groats are the cleaned oats with their hulls removed, and these oat groats will contain a protein level of 16%, crude fat level is 6% and fiber level is 2.0%. This is the oat groats. It is also important meal byproduct or fish ingredient which is to produce from the milling industry or the food processing industry. Next, all these different byproduct which is to produce from the milling industry, produce from the food processing industry, and when all of these byproduct which is to produce, all these ingredient which is to be produced in the feed processing industry, that may be corn processing industry, that may be rice processing industry, or that may be feed processing industry, and waste material which is to be produced from these industries, these waste material, when these are to be converted, when these are to be mixing to other different feed stuffs, then it is to be act as a good food for the fish or the aquatic animals. And when these waste materials provide or supply to the aquaculture for food, or it is to be provided food for aquatic animal, then it give a best results. Hence, these various meal byproduct which is to produce from the mill industry or the food processing industry in our country and in different areas, in different meal processing industry, these are to be developed. These processing industry, these are to produce such type of number of byproduct which is to be used as a food for the aquatic life. With this, we have completed the first point among fish feed ingredient, that is the product or the byproduct which is to produce from the mill or the industry. It is called as fish meal byproduct. The next part we have seen the next byproduct, that is the oil extractives, we have seen in next part. Up to here, any problem, difficulty, please ask. Thank you all of you.